If we're going to survive into the next century, the McKinsey of tomorrow will be unrecognizable to the McKinsey of today. This is only the beginning of the opportunity for consulting. In a world where 70% of the population has never used a telephone, the scope is infinite.
Bad surfing, great sport. You go out into the waves and you see a wave that really is gathering steam. And you decide that's where you're going to put your board. And you ride that baby. You ride it all the way until you say, this is beginning to peter out.
It is pure, raw economics of information technology and economics of globalization which are moving the ship. And so you've got this massive new industry of consultants, that's for sure.
And the dream of the consultant is actually to be in the vanguard of the current fad. And if the fad becomes very much associated with you.
Okay, so this is a sand tray. And the goal here is to use any of the objects, figures that are on this shelf to create a world, the world within the sand tray, which is a world in which innovation process at the firm works in an optimal fashion, works in, if you will, an ideal fashion. If you could have the innovation capabilities of the firm work to their very, very best, the best you could imagine, what would that world be like?
This is the newest face of management consulting, a $40 billion industry that is growing faster than its clients. But consultancy is no longer just about the bottom line, boosting output, cutting jobs. It's no longer about counting heads. It's about what goes on inside them. These are accountants from PricewaterhouseCoopers. They are taking part in a workshop on creativity and innovation. It is led by new style management guru John Kao in San Francisco.
We are actually tremendously excited about Sandtray. We feel we've just begun to scratch the surface in terms of how it can be used. The psychological reality of this is understood much as ideas in a dream are understood, almost like a kind of corporate primary process. The gargoyle, the fallen bear, the caveman, the dancing girls in bikinis are all characters in a corporate drama. What they're doing is translating an inner picture of what they think the ideal system for innovation might be. So what was it like to work together on the Sandtray?
I just really enjoyed being able to be creative.
It's kind of allowed me to think what Heather was thinking when she put that, those people there in the canoe, and I was, oh, okay, now I know what she's thinking. You don't really need to be in an office place to work.
When we first started out, we sort of had different concepts, and so we'd go to get items that represented that. And as it evolved, it started coming together, and so the things that we'd get or take away, I saw a lot of people just say, well, my original thought of that is no longer applicable to this new environment. And so that whole process of the changing environment, every time you go away and come back, it's entirely different.
I don't see any headquarters here. I don't see any CEO here. I don't see functional business units here. What I see are certain capabilities that are about experimentation, which by definition is fun and maybe kind of neo-primitive. But I don't see actually anything that reminds me of a traditional organization. I see rather agendas. Our knowledge of human behavior in the organization of human behavior in relation to issues of knowledge management and innovation and corporate flexibility, to name just a few buzzwords du jour, are just at a very embryonic stage. In this particular group, there are people with tremendous technology literacy, people who understand, who get the new economy, because in fact their job is going to the new companies, the rocket ship companies, the internet companies, the cool companies, and saying, we may be accountants, but we also understand your needs, and we are really good people to work with.
We have so many really smart, motivated, charged people in our organization. And if we could just pull them together, we could just create an amazing amount of change.
They'll figure out, well, you have an opportunity or you have a problem, go solve it. That's why you're up there. You're not at the bottom there. And don't come to me with solutions. Don't come to me with problems.
John Kao typically charges $40,000 a day to advise clients. The Idea Factory is the very latest in consulting. He doesn't use conventional tools. There are no flip charts or overhead projectors. Instead, a graphic artist is helping the group set out their problems and frustrations. They may work for a large and conventional accounting firm, but they're the wired generation, and their company wants to keep them.
There's not probably, but you'll see the value added of having...
Creativity is absolutely at a premium. The people who have the best ideas and have them quickest are the ones who come to market first and who can make the best profits. In this contractual employment world where you don't show loyalty to me, I don't show loyalty to you, I have to find ways of attracting you to stay with me. And I want the brightest, the cleverest and the most creative people to stay for longer. So I will invest in you, I will invest in your creativity and try and create an environment for you where you feel that you are fulfilled and you will want to stay with this employer, because how else can I make you bright people stay?
The actors are used to working with business people. They also understand John Kao's own particular language.
Good morning, and maybe we need Erica for that as well.
We used improv acting as a way of testing out hypotheses about what customers like or what the dilemmas of managing innovation are in an organization. At around 11, so it'll really be the three of us then as the final facilitation team. We ought to do a quick and dirty dilemma, Pandora's box kind of thing. But if they come in and they do this and they actually have something kinesthetic they can do that they bring to their seats, that's even better. They walk into our space, and the typical reaction is a slight smile crosses their face, their shoulders drop about an inch, and within about 5 minutes, they're engaged in a set of activities that have the flavor of a flow state. So, of course, one could say, well, is this one of these California things? We don't do the analytical work for them. We discover things with them.
Kao spent 14 years as a professor teaching creativity at Harvard Business School. He's a jazz musician who's produced film and theater, and he has a degree in psychiatry.
The point here of this little demo is that all of those notes were brand new. I didn't really consider anything other than getting up here and trying to empty my mind as much as possible. Most organizations can't do that. Most professionals can't do that. It's anxiety-provoking to leave all of that identity behind to try to find the white space. So with that, I'm going to introduce This is just incredible.
One minute of thinking I have the right idea means I'm a minute behind other people who are still searching.
I got it all here. I can do it. I can innovate. I got optimism. Boy, am I optimistic. Nobody listens to me.
Does somebody want to take one of the dilemmas that were discussed in the intro and maybe offer that as a subject matter for the actors to work on?
I gave my children up for adoption so I would have enough time to work on that proposal, sir.
All right, freeze. Would you like them to try a different thing?
Yeah.
Okay, try another choice.
More passion in their voice. I mean,
okay.
What the hell are you doing?
More passion.
Of course, I'm going to put my name on the whole project.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what? I appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to research and work through this. And without you, there was no way that I could possibly have come up with this project.
Okay, freeze. What would you like to see in this scene? Where would you like it to go?
I don't like this. And the reason is you're calling the shots, not him.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from, but You're letting him in your proposal, okay? So you're calling the shots. You're not apologizing for him to put his name on a proposal.
Hold on a second. Would you be willing to come up and say that to him now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm more than happy.
All right, let's go back to the beginning of the same scene
Thanks for coming in. I love your proposal. It's really terrific. Thank you for the work. I'm going to present it this afternoon. Of course, I'm going to put my name on it.
No. Whoa. Since you said we're a team and you have reviewed the proposal, do you have any feedback, anything you'd like to change, any input, anything that you'd like to contribute?
Well, I skimmed it, basically. There are a couple of spelling
Skimmed
mistakes.
it?
I mean, it looks good.
It looks good.
Yeah.
Freeze 1 second, if you will. William, I want you to be changed by this. Don't drop your status real low, but really hear him and go, and say, I've always believed.
I have always believed that that those lower in the status in the company have to bow to those higher in status. And I'm not finding you're doing that now, and perhaps you, as being a new person, have things to offer me.
Now, the way we're going to do it, we're doing it my way. Take it or leave it. But if you'd like to have your name on a proposal, what I'd like you is not to skip it. I want you to read it carefully, study it, be able to answer questions because you're sitting on a hot seat. So here's how I'm suggesting we do this together as a team, as opposed to you just putting your name on a proposal.
Now you're talking.
Okay, we'll end the scene there. Okay.
For consultants, empowering and developing the human side of organizations are the new money spinners. After a decade of decimating the ranks of middle managers, companies are looking to consultants to get the most from those who have survived.
Led to a series of events.
In some respects, the world has never been more receptive to consultants. I think the role of the consultant in some areas will also evolve into being a creative partner, into being a colleague, an ally, whose job it is to create a sense of possibility for the organization that it cannot create for itself.
From California to London's Covent Garden and the offices of Smythe Dorwood Lambert, another of the new breed of creative consultants, SDL are brainstorming in what they call a fun and wacky sort of way.
Sort of with integrity. What do you call it? Brown ricey. Wholesome. That's it.
Healthy. I'm quite interested in this snake. Because I think whatever we do has got to have bite and edge and also a sense of danger. So this is natural. And at the same time, people don't like picking it up because they're worried they might get bitten.
SDL consultants Liz Richards and Liz Stanley have been working with software giant Microsoft UK to encourage Microsoft employees to adopt company values.
We'll get it all done today. We've got till 4, haven't we? Yeah.
For SDL, this is a potential new stream of work.
Early adopters, early majority. Steve would like.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought.
It's called putting the wow into values.
I think it's written by the same guy that does all the stuff about fads.
Oh, Abrahamson.
And he's got terms like this as well.
You
and talks
got that,
about
have
how...
My resource pack's at home.
No, my resource pack's at home as well.
I'd be quite keen to get him to kind of co-create one with us.
Yeah. It would actually be quite good to show him a really wide spread of ideas, because he's saying, I want you to be really creative.
Microsoft has a problem. They've cornered the market in computer software, but the research shows too many customers find them uncaring and unresponsive.
We weren't good at managing people. You know, you see famous quotes which say people are our greatest asset, but then we weren't doing an awful lot with it. And so value sort of came out that we knew that to take this company forward, and we looked 3 years out, the only way we do that is to bring in something like values and treat the people better.
In a very competitive world, it's hard to be differentiated from your competition. So you will try, as a manufacturer or a service provider, to have a set of values to say that we care about the customer in a particular way, or we give our service in a particular way. In order to do that, you have to have your staff buy into that. You have to have your staff accept that the values you are talking about in your advertising are the ones that you will find when you hit the high street branch.
And they have 6 values. Respect for the customer, entrepreneurial spirit, cooperation, integrity, passion and empowerment.
We're now at the point where we have a new sponsor. The guy who was our sponsor has moved off to another bit of Microsoft. And the new sponsor is keen to kind of, we've done that good, serious stuff, but we need to get a bit of wow into it. And that's really where we need your help.
So literally 5 minutes to just walk around reading ideas and start picking up the ideas that you think are particularly good.
It actually has value. So you have no integrity, no money.
SDL are doing this work on spec, hoping that the best ideas will appeal to Steve Harvey, who's recently been put in charge of commissioning consulting work at Microsoft. But their new man at Microsoft has yet to be convinced.
So putting me in charge of this particular project has been quite good fun because I'm not one of their greatest lovers, if you like. That's the sad reality of it. We do need those guys to actually help us do what we need to do. Our resource model won't let us have enough resources around to do that sort of work internally.
The SDL director in charge of keeping Microsoft happy is former PR executive Anthony Goodman. He's off to explain the value of a continuing relationship through good times and bad.
You go into every client relationship wanting to have a long-term client relationship. That is what being a consultant is about. We're not quick-hit merchants. We just don't want to go in and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and disappear. You're hoping to make lasting change in the organisation, and that implies a certain level of involvement.
Consultants don't collect large fees for reporting on the excellence of the existing situation. Indeed, the modern breed of consultants emphasise implementation and their desire to stick around for as long as it takes to put their remedies into effect, as much as they do their recommendations in the first place.
SDL's pilot project was to be the first important step in relating how well Microsoft staff live the values to how much they get paid. It's not going well. It seems no one filled out the appropriate forms.
Okay, so just to recap on what the principles of the review and reward process were.
As is often the case, it is unclear whether the client or the consultant is responsible. The task is to apportion blame diplomatically.
Because of that.
I think there's one piece of this that we haven't talked about yet at all, which is that we all dropped the ball on this one. That's my own personal belief that everyone in this room dropped the ball on this, and Tony as well. That we did the forms, did the training, and then never stepped back in to test the process, see how it was going. So, Colin Auntie, as our little consultant, what would you recommend?
Little.
That's a very size experience.
Well, I wonder, rather than going into it, is there something around actually analysing what the risks are of those different options?
I'd love to hear his view first before we
Okay.
get Bob done off now.
But no problem comes without opportunity.
We probably all have got slightly different views on this. One view which I have, you see our strength as being primarily about initiating things, and then it's up to Microsoft to take them on and do them and kind of make them kind of local and fit. And I wondered in that analysis actually whether there wasn't a piece missing, and I think we certainly all felt there was a piece missing, in that there could be something we can do to actually help you through these things. I think it would be really good if you could actually clarify for us what our licence is, because I think the reason why some of these things didn't happen is because I think we were a bit unclear about what our role actually was, and we'd be better off actually fixing this process, making this work, make it easy to operate and understand, bring employees back into the loop in June. That's the immediate next step. Obviously, the view which I was putting forward about the lessons which we'd learned and which we very much wanted to share with the client is that if you use a consultancy like us purely to initiate things and then to come back at the end to review what's actually happened, that's probably not going to get the job done the way you want to have it done.
But how they're clever is they go around and work with different parts of the business and never really get tied down with one owner for the whole time. They've been with us so long now, they've almost become risk adverse in the way that they do their work. And, I want them to, just today, get decisions out of them, get their views. It's quite tough work at times. So they make a good living out of us.
We actually know Microsoft pretty well, but at the end of the day, they know their organisation much better than we can and that we ever can. So it's always trying to get that balance of how much they should do and drive and how much we should do and drive. What can we learn in terms of going forward and making sure that we are clear about the roles.
to be a true rainmaker, the most important thing is getting the trust of the potential client. Being able to look that person in the eye and convince them that you can help them with their problems. These executives have serious problems, and they want somebody that they can truly trust and somebody who will really help them with their problem.
Undaunted by their cool reception at the last meeting, the SDL consultants prepare to pitch their scheme to put the wow factor into values to the still sceptical Steve Harvey.
We know Microsoft pretty well, and we know Steve. And the nice thing about, because of our relationship with Microsoft, is that because we know quite a bit about their organisation, it'll be a lot of debate and dialogue.
This was Steve's idea to have all this done up. So.
SDL have selected the best ideas from their brainstorming session to present in a 5-hour pitch to Steve Harvey. But their proposals must fit his agenda, and he has the company budget to worry about.
The idea we have had, based on a lot of the learnings and stuff we've talked about, and just too many, a lot of values, too many behaviours to remember, is to just pick a value a month or 6 weeks, ideally a month, and to create a kind of dedicated zone or environment in which people can really start to explore the behaviours and the implications and discuss how they might apply that to their work, and then to link into that a more kind of wow campaign element to generate the awareness throughout the body, and kind of informally to start stimulating a lot of the debate.
And one of the things that we think is that we need to actually kind of capture those stories, and it could be as people go through this experience that each group captures its stories, and there's either a website or there's a graffiti board, or we have a storyteller who captures them.
And one of the ideas that we thought of was kind of throughout those campaigns to have values in unusual places. So just quite kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff that makes people look.
Why not sponsor a competition that they all design a painting for a value? I mean, you could,
No, we like that one, Liz. That's a nice little nugget.
Good.
After several hours, Harvey seems to like their proposals, but he has something tougher in mind.
All my time and money on. I'll give you an example of what I want to do at the moment. Is we keep paying people too much money to bugger off out of here because they're no good. I don't think we're dismissing enough people on values-based decisions yet. So I want to do a piece of work that says, right, let's look at everyone that's been here 18 months now, before they get to their 2-year financial watershed. And let's test them against values and see how they're doing.
Yeah.
So you'd like me to do that, would you?
Well, you could also look at who gets promoted. Because if it's built into the promotion project, all the people who got promoted, do they exhibit values behaviour, or is it if you don't, you don't get promoted? Well, it depends how much you want to build on the positive case studies. Because
but you want to.
You'd like to do a bit of stick as well as a bit of carrot.
I actually think in our environment, what actually works is to do the stick and carrot bit.
Yeah.
The verdict to me was it's one of the most useful afternoons I've spent with these guys. Last year was very much about sporadic bits of work, huge activities, different times, big costs. We're never really getting good value out of it, and hence we got a lot of key learnings. A lot of key learnings, no refunds, unfortunately.
It would be great to work with him.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think this does mean more work for them. Some of the ideas they're saying that would be more work haven't been accepted yet, in terms of doing these nice little sessions of groups of 8 people, and you can imagine there's 750, 800 people on site. That's 100 sessions. When my immediate answer was, I can't see the guys buying into investing in that sort of time, not when we're investing in coaching and leadership training as well. So those are the ones that pick up their ideas. And they're obviously, by having the themed values every month is another way of sustaining nice income levels. But we haven't bought into that yet either. I know my budget for the year.
I think we will certainly... no, there's no certainty about it. I think we will probably have a role to work with Steve to help shape his thinking and to develop ideas together. The extent of involvement and implementation of those, I don't know. But I think in terms of suggesting things, working through ideas, keeping that conceptual overview, I think there's a strong role for us there.
It's sometimes hard for clients to really know if they have a good consultant or not for many years. Some of the types of problems that the consultants are working on are very long-term in nature, and it won't be for 5 or sometimes 10 years till they will be able to determine whether that advice was good advice or not.
The wow factor work carried on for several months, but then went quiet. Suddenly, 6 months later, a new executive gave the project the go-ahead.
Historically, we've moved into the 80s and the 90s. There's been much more of a focus on results. So rather than consultants writing reports, there's been much more of a focus on getting things done and consultants staying through with the client to actually get the result.
So you've got a great business system. It works because you have so many companies who are hoping that somebody externally has the answer and they can just pay for it and unleash it, and somehow that will make them instantly world-class.
And now consultancy is going global. To an outsider, Egypt can be a chaotic reminder of the difference between Europe and the Middle East. But another country, another opportunity. The consultants believe their brand of know-how works as well here as at home, particularly when the job is the creation of a new mobile phone company. In July, the Egyptian government privatized its struggling mobile phone network and sold it to a new multinational company called Mobanil. They brought in Gemini, a London-based consulting firm, to help them relaunch the service. The new company is struggling to keep up with demand, while handling the cultural problem of setting up in Cairo with French and American investors and with an Egyptian controlling interest. Gemini is virtually running the project while trying to make it appear that Mobanil is in charge.
Give it to the customer, and here just we accept money.
But now you are handling the new contracts, not the old.
The greatest thing for me, I think, for consulting is when you do what I call the Chinese water torch. You keep letting these ideas go out, and then a few weeks later you suddenly hear the client saying, I've thought of a great idea, I think we should do this. And you don't say, told you so. You just sit back and think, the Chinese water torches worked. They've now accepted it as their idea. And that's what management's all about, is getting other people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it.
Wake him up.
Both consultant and client are jammed into the Cairo Hilton. The 16-strong Gemini consulting team come from all around the world, but their experience of Egypt is limited to the call center and this hotel.
Yeah, I mean, they would probably like to...
Gemini has paid £300,000 a month plus all expenses to get the project underway. Most have never worked in telecommunications before, but they believe their experience in finance, computing and management can fit any situation. After all, they've got a template. It's called Telco in a Box.
Telco in a Box is basically telecoms in a box. So we basically take a ribbon off the box and out pops a company.
We help set up mobile phone companies, and we call that Telco in a Box. So if you want a new mobile phone company, we can give it to you in a box, and we know how long it's going to take. We know what the challenges are, we know what kind of management are required, what organisation is needed, what systems are required, what the technological needs are, and having done it 3 or 4 times, we can do it very quickly.
At the hotel, Peter Day prepares for a crisis meeting. Mobanil has announced new low prices in the local press. The response has been good, too good. The call centre is inundated with requests and can't cope. The board of directors and chief executive Osman Sultan are meeting to decide what to do. Peter needs to put a positive spin in events while nudging the directors towards his solution.
Every success always has things that you need to do the fine-tuning. So these are often fine-tuning. I think we mentioned already that we've got 3 times the usual call rate. About 22% of calls were abandoned on Sunday, not surprisingly, because of the volume.
And as of last night, it was around 8 o'clock, we had about a 30% rate for the day. So it's...
In a meeting, it's really, a lot of it's trying to not look like I'm too much in control. It's very important to maintain credibility that the client is in control. We certainly need some additional resources and a crisis plan, I think, to say, we've got 500 people in the company. This is critical to our success in terms of loyalty, retention. We can't afford to be seen to be failing. We can't be victims of our own success.
I would like to see a specific task force. Jerry, you take the lead on this because this is important. We cannot be victim of the success, and the picture must be really very, very clean. And I would suggest that within the coming 24 hours, there is a meeting of this task force.
It's all about communication. At a certain point in time, you just feel that two sides are not communicating. And you have to find out what's going on. And the way you do it is just by talking with the other Gemini representative.
How was WTC this morning? Was it going ahead well, or?
Yes and no. What else? Bill printing and delivery request for proposal. There was a draft submitted to IT, and we're waiting for feedback from IT. So, does anyone from IT knows about it?
Didn't we have in our checklist, training for CSRs? So how did...
Just without prolonging it, I think the important message we keep coming up with is that when people are making decisions on projects, they mustn't work in isolation. This is what keeps happening at the minute. No one should underestimate the amount of information that other departments need. And we need to have in our implementation plan, when does it come in? A week before, we need to make sure we communicate it to our staff, way before it ever gets to a customer. And all of us in this room who are planning these things need to make sure we really have got things planned well and trained to our staff before we launch them on the public. There's nothing worse than us not knowing internally what's happening externally. So it's a message for everyone. Everyone. We all make the same mistake.
Dealing with the internet, dealing with globalization. Those two phenomenon really are fundamentally changing the world. The hype is ridiculous, the hype is out of control. On the other hand, the reality is just as ridiculous. The backroom operations of a London bank can be performed as easily in rural Ireland or rural India as they can be in the city. And so that's for real.
But does the consultant's view of a dynamic, interchangeable, wired world fit the reality on the ground in Egypt?
It is an incredibly hierarchical society, I think, more than any I've come across. We had one manager who wanted to move a PC about 2 foot across his desk, but called his office boy in and waited for him to arrive and watched him move his PC before he could carry on working. Now, the discussion we've been having with the CEO is what type of company do we become? Do we become an Egyptian company with its natural cultural hierarchical status, and where you have a certain status you don't do certain menial tasks? But does that really bode well for what should perhaps be an international company on an international stage, because a GSM mobile phone company is competing with another competitor here in Egypt, who I'm sure will have international standards, and they're competing with people just across the borders.
It's here on the right, sorry, the World Trade Center.
Part of the task of making the Gemini blueprint fit here falls to 23-year-old Melissa Tatra. Cairo is her first overseas project for Gemini. Melissa's working with call center staff who have their own way of doing things. She is trying to introduce them to Gemini best practice.
Everything moves in a slightly different pace. Things happen when they get done. No one really operates according to deadlines or according to time frames. You set up a meeting and most of the time people aren't there yet. You say that you want something done by Friday and it gets done by next Friday. Things in the US or in the UK would take 10 minutes, take 10 days here. So but you get used to it. After having been here for so long, I don't expect things to happen when I schedule them anymore. Would you mind asking the 4 people from the back office to come down here? I want to really get into the detail of what they do every day. And I don't want them to look at this and say, oh, these are the things we're supposed to be doing. We're going to go through what they're already doing, the types of inquiries they're handling. I want them to feel like they're part of creating this plan to get here. I want to start by you just brainstorming everything you do every day. What types of customer problems you're facing, what are you doing to handle them, everything from when you arrive in the morning till you leave in the afternoon. Everything you do.
Strange countries and strange codes, they
don't
know nothing about them.
Okay.
I mean, printing all out the detailed bills from last week or things like this.
These are inquiries for dropped calls. Okay. There will be people who are required to deal with saving customers when customers are trying to leave the network. There will be people who will have to work with the call center and the walk-in save team to send out gifts to these customers, to give them credits, to make them happy so they don't leave the network. So that will be some of your job. We really need to make sure that all of you can do everything. Okay? So 4 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, the 5 of us will sit down and talk about what you've been up to. Okay? We've got so much to do.
Well, there's a bunch about the new tariffs and so on, yeah?
They seem to be doing nothing with it. It's disgusting.
Have you been over the far side to look?
Yes.
Just wander over there and see how busy they are this minute?
They're doing nothing.
I'll walk round there in a minute and have a look.
Peter Day has arrived armed with an emergency plan.
Now fine, but I think what we should have is a crisis plan, even if we don't bring it into action, but it's agreed, so the minute you need it, we just go click and everyone knows what to do.
Click.
Click.
Melissa has been pulled in to persuade the sales team that they too have a role to play in coping with the overflow.
I'm here to give you a little bit of training on the new tariffs that Mobinail has launched this past weekend. So you guys will be answering calls from prospective customers on the new tariffs and how they can go about signing up to join Mobinail. Okay, so does everyone understand that? No? Yes? Yes? Okay. This is my way of dealing with stress. At home, I would run outside every day. For about my first week, I went running outside. You get people hissing at you and following you, and it's just not worth it. You come back more angry than you were before you left. And in July, when it's 100 degrees in Cairo, I was not wearing sweats.
6 months later, Mobinail is still under siege from its customers, but it's the top performer in the Cairo stock market.
Einstein said, many of the things you can count don't count. Many of the things you can't count really count. What really counts at McKinsey? And where do we go from here?
McKinsey's answer to its own question is, go global. But there is one country at least that is resistant to the consultants' worldwide blueprint and is defying their neat and tidy logic. With the collapse of communism, McKinsey was one of the many firms that came to Moscow to pursue Russian gold at the end of the privatization rainbow. The expected bonanza has turned very sour. Bill Lewis is a McKinsey globetrotter, his job to travel the world evaluating economies for clients. Lewis has come to Moscow to puzzle out why the consultant's model of best practice isn't working here. 10 years after the consultants first set foot in Russia, the economy has collapsed. The futures market stands empty. The banks have crashed, and there is no money in the economy.
McKinsey Company, добрый день. He's at a meeting now, unfortunately.
Even McKinsey's have felt the pinch, reducing their Moscow office staff by 60. These modern-day Jesuits spreading their gospel of deregulation have run up against their sternest test. For Lewis, the answer is to preach the gospel a little louder to attract the reluctant foreign investor. McKinsey's Global Institute measures countries against its blueprint of economic performance and encourages investors who it has hoped will buy in their expertise.
The Global Institute is the agent within McKinsey of working with my fellow partners in the firm to identify the potential to bring best practice to Russia. Many of the best practice